All right, hi 333. This is a lesson for 423. This is our first day of absolute value inequalities. This should be very new to you. So this is specifically an Algebra 1 skill. I think the only people who may have done this is the kids who had passed out of Skills Nav and were only on IXL. So absolute value, just to remind you, remember that's the distance a number is from 0 on the number line. It's always going to be a positive value because distance is always positive. So the absolute value of 5 is 5 because it's 5 spaces away from 0 on the number line. The absolute value of -5 is also 5 because it's 5 spaces away. Negative 23, the absolute value is 23, 17 is 17, -4 is 4, and 3 is 3. All right, so part 1, for what values of x would this work? So the absolute value of some number is equal to 3. Well, there's two numbers that would work in there, and it would be 3 or -3. Both of those would work if I plugged it in there. If I plugged in 3, got the absolute value, it would be 3. If I plugged in -3, got the absolute value, it would be 3. All right, for what values of x would this work? So the absolute value of some number is less than 3. Okay, so the absolute value of some number is less than 3. Well, wouldn't the absolute value of 1 be less than 3? Wouldn't the absolute value of 2 be less than 3? Wouldn't the absolute value of 0 be less than 3? But then we start to get into tricky things, right? If I wanted to do the absolute value of, let's say, -3, I would end up with 3. And that means that 3 is less than 3, which isn't true. So that is not true. So what you're going to be doing here is we're going to write out the numbers that it works for. So the numbers that work here are the numbers 2, the number 1, the number 0, the -1, and -2. No other numbers would work here. So I'm going to put that on the number line. I'm going to start at -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. All right, so what that means is between, but not including -3 and 3, it would be all of these numbers that are in between. So see how I left those open circles? Because it doesn't include those numbers. Whereas the reverse, it says the absolute value of some number is greater than 3. Well, that would be any number that's bigger than 3, the absolute value-wise. So 4 would work, or -4 would work, because the absolute value of -4 is 4. So any number larger than 3 and any number smaller than -3. So what that looks like on the number line, let's draw it out again. Start at -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. Is once again, we've got open circles, but instead the arrows are pointing away. All right, we're going to come back to this in a little bit. All right. So looking at the first problem, how you're going to solve it is you're actually going to set up two inequalities. So it says that the absolute value of x plus 1 is less than 3. So I'm going to set up the first inequality, which is going to be x plus 1 is less than 3. Then I'm going to set up the opposite of that, which is going to be x plus 1, and then the opposite of less than is greater than, and the opposite of 3 is -3. And I'm going to solve both of those to help me get my answer. All right, so draw my river. I'm going to do -1 on both sides, and I end up with x is less than 2. Over here, draw my river, -1 on both sides, and I end up with x is greater than -4. All right, so that means that the number to solve this equation has to be smaller than 2, but it has to be bigger than -4. So I'm going to put those onto my number line. I'm going to put all the numbers that are between 2 and -4. So -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. So because these are both less than or equal to, they don't have a, so because they're both less than and greater than, and they don't have an equal to, they're going to be open circles. And since it's the numbers that are smaller than -2, or smaller than 2, that means we're going to go to the left. And the ones that are bigger than -4, we're going to go to the right. We're going to end up hitting each other. So it's going to end up being a line in the middle between those two. So our answer is that x is less than 2, and because they went toward each other, x is greater than -4. All right, we're going to practice this a few more times. I know it's tricky. It's our first day doing this. It will be okay. All right, let's look at the next one. We're going to set up our two equations. So I'm going to have x minus 3 is greater than or equal to 4, just like how it is on there. Now we're going to do the opposite. X minus 3, the opposite of greater than or equal to is less than or equal to, and the opposite of 4 is -4. All right, solve this like normal. Plus 3 on both sides. I get x is greater than or equal to 7. Same thing on here, plus 3 on both sides. I get x is less than or equal to -1. Okay, let's go ahead and let's put our numbers on here. So our smallest number is -1. Our biggest number is 7, so we're going to have to include those and have all the numbers in between. So I'm going to put those in. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right. So it says all the numbers that are greater than 7. So greater than or equal to 7. So I'm going to do a filled in 7 and go away from it because it's the bigger numbers than 7. And then I'm going to do a filled in -1 and go away from it because it's the numbers that are smaller than -1. This time it looks like this. So instead of writing and, we're going to choose or because it's either bigger or it's either smaller. It can't be both. So x is greater than or equal to 7 or x is less than or equal to -1. All right, let's do 2 more of these. Okay, so rewrite our equations. X plus 2 is less than or equal to 5. X plus 2 is greater than or equal to -5. All right, minus 2 on both sides. End up with x is less than or equal to 3. That's my first one. Minus 2 on both sides. I end up with x is greater than or equal to -7. Okay, so if it's less than or equal to 3, it's going to be getting smaller. And if it's greater than or equal to -7, it's going to be getting bigger. So this means they're going to be hitting each other. So it's going to be the line is going to be filled in between those 2 points, and it's going to be and in our solution. So I'm going to start at -7 on the number line, -6, -5. All right, because these are less than or equal to and greater than or equal to, they're going to be filled in. And like I mentioned, the line is going to go in between them. X is less than or equal to 3, and x is greater than or equal to -7. Okay, last one I'm going to help you with. Rewrite our equations. X minus 2 is less than or equal to 3. X minus 2 is greater than or equal to -3. Plus 2 on both sides. I end up with x is less than or equal to 5. Plus 2 on both sides. I end up with x is greater than or equal to -1. Okay, so since it's going to start at 5 and go less than, it's going to go towards that way. And since it's going to start at -1 and go to more than, it's going to go toward each other and they're going to hit. So this is going to be an and situation. So I'm going to start at -1. 0, 1, 2, 5. These have a line underneath, so they're going to be filled in circles. So x is less than or equal to 5, and x is greater than or equal to -1. All right. I know this seems fast. Rewind it. Watch this again. It'll help you out. Look at the completed notes. See ya.